All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let us start our conference, please. So may I ask all of those that have not yet found the perfect seat to just come in, and there are still some seats available. Even VIP seats over here are still available. Just come closer. And no worries, at the end of this session there will be no chair left. They will be definitely all full by someone, because there are so many people who want to attend our conference. So just come in, join us, and we're going to start right now. So there were still some people downstairs at the reception, but anyway, we're going to start, otherwise we will be too late. And of course, we want to make use of all the time today for our conference and the discussion we will have. All right. Then let me officially welcome you to the Urban Farming Conference. Ein herzliches Willkommen zur Urban Farming Conference. Bienvenidos a la Conferencia de la Agricultura Urbana. My name is Ralph Gries, and I have the pleasure to guide you through these 2 days, today and tomorrow. And we will start our conference now with 2 welcome notes. And the first one, and I will directly hand over by the managing director of the organizers, the Grüne Liga Berlin, Karen Thormeyer, and right after her, Jessica Baier, the main donor of this conference from Engagement Global, will talk to us. Karen.
Thank you, Ralph. Sorry, I'm speaking German. It's not so good, my English. Vielen Dank an Ralph, unseren Moderator.
Thanks, Ralph, our moderator. Ralph is not just a moderator, but he has selected together with us from these many projects that were submitted, the projects that are showcased here. So I hope that we've been able to select the most exciting projects. So again, thanks to Ralph. It's going to be a great event. To our International Urban Farming Conference here in Berlin today. I'm very pleased to know that we have more than 200 guests from more than 30 countries here in the venue of the Heinrich Böll Foundation. Thanks to our host for these excellent facilities here. Thanks to the Heinrich Böll Foundation. The subtitle is Concepts for Sustainable Cities. That is where we want to look at the diversity of urban agricultural landscape, the variety of different projects. We would like to present the political conditions and want to network and spur exchange. Why do we do this conference? We are the Grüne Liga, the Green League, a small environmental NGO in Berlin, which looks at urban ecology. We are advising people regarding greens, facade, greening, backyard greening, what have you, allotment garden consultancy. We have a magazine, the only Berlin environmental magazine from volunteers. Every week we do Eco Market, Kollwitzplatz. From those of you who are not from Berlin, it's one of the most renowned squares in Berlin. So we do that for 20 years almost. So you can buy your organic food and veggies and supporting the organic farmers from the region at that farmers market. We have a major event, 250 exhibitors at the Brandenburger Gate. It's NGOs, it's organic farmers, it's people from renewable energy, climate protection, mobility. At the same time, we have a bicycle tour. More than 100,000 people meet in Berlin in a star-shaped fashion. They are coming to Berlin, and we are also organizing education and environmental education under the heading of Global Classroom, and we are the organizers of the ER campus. which is the environmental educational program of the International Garden Conference. There's an excursion tomorrow, by the way. There you have an opportunity to have your first look at this. It's 30 school classes and groups come there and are getting training. How do I plant potato? How do I do my potato dumplings, etc. Our joint goal is, we call it network ecological movement, networking. Networking is key. And that is, of course, also what we're striving for here, striving to promote at this conference, networking. Urban farming, urban gardening, urban agriculture. These names already show the diversity behind this urban little agriculture. And the name of the conference led to some discussion in Berlin. Berlin is a city where gardening plays an ever more important role for ever more people. There are more and more inquiries here. There is more and more activists that have knocked at our door and learn more and more, make the acquaintance of more and more people from outside. And then we did a pre-study which reflects a major look at urban landscaping, urban agriculture. And so through this study we learned that there's so much diversity. The results of that pre-study go way beyond the ideas of urban gardeners here in Berlin and beyond Europe. And we have learned that urban gardeners in the global north can still learn quite a lot from African, Asian, and American urban gardeners. Now we're trying to retain this knowledge here, bring it together. We want to show you great projects of urban gardening, look at the city of the future. I want to discuss food security, food sovereignty, and urban farming as a means towards fighting climate change, and also allotments and gardens as a place for emotion and for getting together. I would like to most cordially thank the co-organizers again. Everyone will be here, and everyone will make a contribution with their concepts and their work towards the success of this conference. Engagement Global and the Berlin Senate Administration for Traffic, the Heinrich Böll Foundation, Miserior, Anstiftung, Schweißfood Foundation, the Research and Documentation Center, Chile and Latin America, and the Institute for World Food Security. There are so many institutions that have supported us here in setting up this conference. So I wish you lots of insights and lots of fun. And now Jessica Baier from Engagement Global.
Ja, vielen Dank, Frau Thormeyer.
Thanks, Ms. Thormeyer. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to welcome you here on behalf of Engagement Global to this International Urban Farming Conference in Berlin. Urban agriculture meets such an interest, and that's very pleasing. And I'm impressed by the diversity of the actors and the initiatives that have convened here in Berlin for this technical exchange. The response, the excellent response to this meeting shows how important this idea is in the year of the International Garden Exhibition to do a conference on urban gardening, urban farming here. I'm happy that the Grüne Liga approached us here at Engagement Global, and we are allowed to be a cooperating partner for this conference. Engagement Global works on behalf of the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. We are supporting actors in Germany and their partners in the Global South for their commitment towards more global development. Our partners include non-governmental organizations, schools, foundations, and also municipalities. The service desk One World municipalities is one of the areas of Engagement Global. The service desk is a service offering. So we support actors of the municipalities, of the administration regarding issues like fair and sustainable procurement or cooperation in the area of North-South partnerships. We are orienting along the line of the idea of a sustainable development, and specifically these 17 sustainable development goals passed within the frame of the Agenda 2030. Food security and sustainable agriculture, as you know, are one of these major SDGs. And one is the design of sustainable and resilient cities and settlements in an area where 50% of the population of the world live in urban spaces with an increasing tendencies. Urban agriculture may have a major contribution to implementing these sustainable development goals. As Mrs. Thormeyer already indicated, urban agriculture fulfills various different functions, which from my point of view have a lot to do with public service provisions and the tasks of municipalities. This goes way beyond the production of regional and seasonal produce. Urban gardening may make various different contributions to sustainable urban development, improving the city climate, air quality, or a contribution towards retaining biodiversity and soil quality. Also, the contribution of environmental education must not be underestimated. Urban gardening fulfills also other social functions. Urban gardens are a place to meet and to exchange. And I think yesterday evening we had a first get-together, and that was quite convincing in this respect. Urban agriculture has different histories and traditions by country. The types of urban agriculture and the actors involved distinguished by country and city. That is the diversity which is to be discovered over the next 2 days, to spot communalities and differences and facilitate mutual learning. As a service desk for municipalities, we are much interested in the cooperation of various different actors on the local level, from the civil society, from the scientific realm, or from local administration and politics. What can municipalities contribute towards that? What conditions can be set? And what added value does urban agriculture provide for the work of municipalities? And in the service desk, to clarify these questions, we work on the basis of a peer-to-peer learning, meaning actors from Germany and actors from the Global South. Many German municipalities have went on a way together with their 1,000 counterparts to implement SDGs, embracing international subject matters like the climate change. Some partnerships look at city greening and urban landscaping. Cooperation with the Grüne Liga, therefore, is an excellent opportunity to learn more about urban agriculture as a possibility for international learning, and also looking at corporations in future. We had upfront to this conference is study. Anja Steglin and her colleagues executed this study and looked at the various different forms of urban agriculture and featured examples of that cooperation. That gave us the first insight into the big potential of this theme for international technical exchange. The study was also an essential basis of the preparation of this conference. The conference now provides an opportunity for meeting face-to-face and for a well-founded, sound technical exchange. Such a conference feeds on exchange and contribution of each individual. That's why I would like to thank all of you who have submitted a paper up front and will enrich this conference through their examples. I specifically like to thank the team of the Grüne Liga and all other supporters of this conference, which have facilitated this international conference and laid the foundation for this international exchange of experience. I wish us all 3 results of this conference. At least one concrete idea for immediate implementation in one's own work, at least one contact for further exchange and cooperation, and at least one vision for the further development of one's own work, which can then be translated into concrete steps. And regarding this further development, I'd like to encourage you to think of other forms of international cooperation and mutual global learning and integrate this into your daily work. Having said that, I wish us all a successful conference and a fruitful exchange. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these 2 notes. Now, actually, these are very challenging aims that Jessica Baier was just announcing what we should try to get out of this conference within the next 2 days. Let me provide you a very rough overview about what we have on the agenda today and tomorrow in order to hopefully achieve these goals, to learn from each other. That was, I guess, the first point. Then to get in contact with others and to know how to support further and to start other initiatives in the future. So we'll start right now with an introductive keynote by Marielle Dubbeling from the Netherlands to provide us a very first brief insight into the topic. We will then have today and tomorrow 2 open space sessions where we will have 19 urban farming projects from all around the world, where these actors have the option and the possibility to share some ideas and to let us know why and how they have been successful. We will have 2 panel discussions, one today, which will focus on the global north, and another one that will focus on the global south tomorrow. So we've separated these 2 regional areas, even though we think, of course, it should be thought together as one world, that's clear. But still, we think the frames are just so different in the north and in the south that we thought, okay, let's divide it into 2 panel discussions and let's make use in the workshops, let's make use in the open space, and of course, in the breaks in between anyway, to bring these two sides of our world together. Then we will have workshops, 11 workshops altogether, today and tomorrow, and they will be on several topics, starting from climate change, will be about empowerment, conflict transformation, up to food security. So that's a wide range of topics that will be covered by the workshops, and you have already chosen the workshops you will be in. So I guess you have a very good overview about what we will discuss within these workshops. And we will have today a chat with Stefan Tido from the Senate of Berlin about urban farming here in the capital of Germany. And as already mentioned, excursions will take place today, tomorrow, and even on Wednesday, so that all of you have the possibility to see good practice examples here in Berlin and to see in a practical manner what we have heard and learned maybe today and tomorrow. And last but not least, we will have one fishbowl discussion, which will be the opportunity for all of you, for all of us to participate in this public discussion. And the aim of this fishbowl will be to get ideas how urban farming can be supported in the future and how urban farming should be supported worldwide. So this is actually, in a nutshell, our agenda for today and tomorrow. So plenty of opportunities to get in contact with colleagues from all around the world. In order to facilitate this a little bit, the conference will be actually in German, English and Spanish, but we will have translation, of course, for all the different sessions. So if you do not have a transmitter yet, get it with a deposit at the backside of this room. And today there will be no Spanish translation necessary, only English and German, but tomorrow there will be Spanish inputs as well. So that's all for the program today and tomorrow at the moment. And let us dive right now directly into the topic. And I'm very happy that I can announce Marielle Dubbeling from the Netherlands with her keynote, Urban Agriculture, What is Next? Just some words about Marielle. I think a lot of you already know Marielle. She is director of the RUAF Foundation, the international network of resource centers on urban and peri-urban agriculture and food systems. She herself is an expert in urban agriculture with more than 17 years of working experiences from all around the world. So she has a very impressive CV, actually, I must say, with lots of practical working experiences on the topic from Latin America, from Southeast Asia, from Africa, from the Middle East, and lots of countries of Europe. And she will share some ideas and some of her experiences with us with the keynote. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Good morning to all of you. And thank you for the organizers of doing me the honor to be able to share some of our experiences of these past 17 years' work with you. I've called my presentation Urban Agriculture, What's Next? Originally, they asked me to talk about the diversity and the values of urban agriculture, but I think these will come up and show very well in the different workshops and presentations on other people. So I actually would like to share with you some of our thinking, which is still, evolving, on what are the challenges and the major issues for urban agriculture for the next 20 years. Because we could actually say that we've had now 20, of course urban agriculture exists for as long as human settlements exist, but the research and the support and the projects have been most intense for the past 20 years. So what are the challenges for the next 20 years? And I want to just pose some of them and also show that urban agriculture, may have even more or different benefits or values than the ones that we're discussing right now. So what does that require in terms of support, policy support, in terms of research needs, and in terms of the type of actors that we need to engage? These are some of the topics I will discuss briefly in that. And just to start, for those who don't know us, RUAF is a global partnership of it's a beast of multiple stakeholders, since we believe that you can only promote urban agriculture if you bring cities, governments, researchers, and communities and NGOs together. And I'm very pleased that we have actually 3 of our partners here. So if you want to know more about RUAF, you can address me, but you can also address Davinder there in the corner, representing Mazingira. There's Rhonda from Toronto, somewhere at the back. And there's Alexandra from Quito, also a member of RUAF. We have partner cities and organizations from the global north, like Ghent, and from the global south. We've been working on the topic since 1999 in about 50 cities around the world. And we look at urban agriculture and try to combine it with other urban sectoral programs and policies, like food security, local economic development, like the program we're supporting in Gaza, that Ahmed can tell you more about. Climate change, go to our colleague here in the room from Cairo, who's unfortunately not in my climate change session, but can share you also a lot of interesting work done in Cairo with rooftop gardening on that. This is just to show, I think, that what said in the introduction, what is urban agriculture, what is urban farming, what is urban gardening. I mean, I think in the past 20 years, we've seen this diversity of more intra-urban, smaller scale gardening and farming with more social benefits, community gardens, backyard gardens, with climate change benefits, rooftop gardens for stormwater management, but also for building insulation. We've seen that it doesn't only contain crop growing, but also involves animal breeding, which has to be planned for, of course. It involves mushroom growing. So there's lots of different types of products. We see now a tendency for vertical farming, so for new technologies growing in buildings. And I can say if you look for a definition, you will not find one. So don't try to, put urban agriculture, urban gardening into one defined concept. It's very diverse. Lots of different production systems, lots of different actors involved, and each type of urban agriculture has its own benefits. So the one may be more social, the one may be more local economic development, the third one may be more climate change or education. And I think that's also the beauty of it, now that we can play with this diversity of systems. I want to challenge you, however. So far still, although we say urban and peri-urban agriculture, so far still we're looking a lot at the inner city boundaries. And that has its benefits, and we should continue to do that. But with urban growth, a lot of agriculture will be urban agriculture in the very near future. So we should already start thinking about that, because not we're going to lose that land. If we define urban agriculture as agriculture which relates with urban ecosystems, where urban waste resources, energy, organic waste, water can be recycled, where products from agriculture will feed the city, where there is environmental benefits in terms of climate change, we need also to think of these areas which will become urban in the very near future. And this study done by the International Water Management Institute in the University of California actually says that they looked at cities of 500,000 and larger, and then they looked at the 20-kilometer range around the city. And in 2013, the global area of urban irrigated croplands, so they looked at all croplands, but then looked what was urban in that definition, was already 24 million hectares, so 11% of all irrigated croplands in the world. So you could also say 11% of all irrigated crops, that feed the cities are currently urban. If you look at rain-fed croplands, it's about 5%. And so what do we need to take that future urban agriculture into account? What can we learn in terms of planning of the intra-urban agriculture that's already taking place? And I think that calls for what is now called a city-region food system. This term was coined about 3 years ago. It has become kind of mainstream in also UN agendas. For example, the UN New Urban Agenda that was approved last year in Quito in Ecuador, looking at the city region and looking at that diversity of urban agriculture, which becomes even larger if you take into account what you can do in upland forest in terms of agroforestry systems, what you can do at water edges, what you could do at riparian zones to manage them for biodiversity. And this is a challenge, and there's some cities here that in the room that I would like you, if you're interested, to contact. We have Quito. Quito is known for its urban agriculture program for the past 15 years. It has received numerous prizes. But Quito is now saying, okay, to actually look at our city sustainability goals, we need to look beyond the city boundaries. So they are now starting to formulate a territorial food policy. And there's all complications involved in that. You have jurisdictional complications. You need to work city and province. No? You need to work different secretariats in the city. Rosario is another example. Urban agriculture was managed by the social promotion department. Peri-urban agriculture is managed by the Secretariat for Production. And even within a city, there is not always, good communication between them. Around cities, we have smaller municipalities. So how to work with them, cross-jurisdictional collaboration. In Nairobi, Davinder can talk to you about that. They have a county system now. So they have an urban agriculture act at the level of Nairobi County, not at the level of Nairobi City. So that's a challenge for us to think about. Related to that is urban agriculture, what scale? No? I think a lot of responses we get from when we work with cities is, yeah, urban agriculture can't feed the city. And then my answer is, why should it? No? We're not asking one region, one agricultural region to feed the entire city. So why are we asking urban agriculture to feed the entire city? I think that's still something, a conceptual change we need to make. Even if studies show, like in Antananarivo, the capital of Madagascar, 30% of all rice consumed in the city is grown in the city. Other studies show that 100% of the lettuce consumed in the city can be grown in urban and peri-urban agriculture. But I think we need to have a change from volume to diversity. This is the main argument also used in the new urban agenda, no? They promote urban agriculture and urban farming as a resilient strategy to reduce vulnerability in supply issues in terms of food price crisis, no? Diversity of food supply sources. We've seen that a diverse garden also has highest impacts on household level if you look at in terms of nutrition. Growing a diversity of food has better nutritious impacts than if people just grow one or two types of food in the garden. Also, if we look at working at city scale, and want to get benefits, for example, in terms of climate change, and this is an image made by students that worked for the PDP project in Cairo that's presented here. If we just look at the benefits of rooftop gardens on climate change, we may, even if we cover the entire city, we may maybe get a 0.3, 0.4 change in degrees. But if we combine rooftop gardening with open space gardening, with gardening or parks, we can get to 0.7, 1 degree difference. So again, that diversity is very important in terms of policies and planning, and also in terms of collaboration. Often organizations promote one type of gardening. They work for community gardens or rooftop gardens. So how can they come together? How can they look at what type of areas are best suited for what type of farming system? This is another example that shows that if we think of diversity, this is a scenario study done in Cleveland, where they said, okay, if we use 80% of every vacant lot in the city, we can cover between 22 and 48% of demand for fresh fruits and vegetables, depending on how intensive our production is. 25% of poultry and eggs and 100% of honey. But if we use 80% of all vacant lots and 9% of all occupied residential lots, these percentages increase. And if we look at vacant lots plus residential lots plus 62% of all industrial and commercial rooftops, these percentages increase even further. So with those scenarios, if we want to talk about self-reliance, the city can achieve between 4 to 70% by weight, or up to 7% by expenditure, retain a lot of money within the local economy. But what does that require? Active commitment of city governments and planners. Establishing, for example, a municipal land bank, and then land is also used as, paved over spaces that can be used, as our colleague from Cuba can tell us, it means rooftop spaces. Such a land bank was actually made up, using GIS, both in Rosario and Amman. So Hisham can also tell you about that, how they did it. It requires public engagement of all these actors and financial investments. Revision of land use and building codes. There's many examples from cities where they changed building codes to be able to allow for rooftop farming, where they changed residential codes, like in Toronto, and Rhonda can tell more about that. Where now within urban settlements, farmers' markets or small household kitchens or small community gardens are allowed in residential zoning. And we need to think about labor, which I think is very important. We often assume that a lot of people want to produce, which I want to put into question. One other topic now, if we think about a larger scale of urban agriculture, and if we think about tendencies in food systems, I think a future role of urban agriculture, which could be much more pronounced, is how to address food system vulnerability. We see in a lot of countries, also in the global south now, this growing monopolization of the food system. So 80% of our food is managed by 3, 4, or 5 companies, which in terms of diversity, if we want to promote that, is very risky, and in terms of vulnerability. In terms of power relations. And I think that's one of the reasons why, at least in Europe, this renewed demand for short supply chains and knowing where our food comes from and connecting to the producer, wanting transparency of your food is a very important role that urban agriculture can play. So how do we make this link again between the larger processing and supermarket industry with this regional supplier base? What role can be played by smaller urban agriculture? How can volumes be aggregated by urban agriculture from the city? And there's a couple of lessons that we learned. That picture here on the left is actually a picture from Quito, where the national government has put in place a rule that 12% of the offer of supermarkets has to come, in this case, from national small-scale producers. So how can we think of a similar system, where in provenance criteria and procurement criteria and corporate social responsibility, we can work with this private sector to procure a part of their products from urban agriculture. And of course, that has requirements in terms of how we support producers, quality criteria, aggregated volumes, time delivery. How can we mobilize consumer demand? The image on the right is from Bristol, from a hospital in Bristol, which has won a certified scheme of providing hospital meals with a certain percentage, which is locally grown. And you see this happening in the Netherlands as well. And clients in the hospital actually demand for that type of food. And there are some studies that it helps recovery. One, if patients can choose what they want to eat, instead of getting, but also that feeling of doing something for the neighborhood, of connecting again, is helpful in the healing process. So there's a lot to do here in work with the industrial sector. And when coming to that, talking about, then we're thinking of an urban agriculture where it has to be commercially viable. And a lot of urban agriculture is not commercially viable. So again, we have to think of the different types. And what I see happening is that a lot of donors ask for urban agriculture, which has social benefits, which may generate some economic accident, is not commercially viable, but they force you to make it commercially viable. And even our Dutch donor government now forces you, if you get money, to sign an agreement that in 10 years' time you will monitor the impacts of your project, and you have to show that it still exists. A lot of urban agriculture cannot continue to exist without continued government support. And it should not. Why should it if it has social benefits? Why should it if it helps poor families to eat a bit better or to get a bit more money? No? We have government subsidies for unemployment, for social welfare, for why should urban agriculture not get that same status? So I think that's another thing we still have to work on. While at the same time, there is urban agriculture which could become commercially viable, but we need new business models. A study in the Netherlands showed that if I don't talk about the larger scale, but the smaller scale commercial urban agriculture is not viable if you only look at production. So you need to combine production with education, with social care services, with environmental services, which need to be monetized. We need to think of trickle-down effects. No? So there is an example of hotels. There's a large hotel chain which now has rooftop gardens, to use part of that in their hotel kitchen. Why can't those hotels, hire unemployed youth to manage their gardens? It'll cost them a bit more, but I think the people who eat it will even like it better if you use that as a marketing argument. So what are the trickle-down effects we can achieve to get more benefits, no? And what are the social and environmental payoffs that we could or may not, translate into economic terms? Finally, I think there is new urgencies on cities' agendas. Of course, we still have the urgency of food security, very important, of nutrition. But these are some of the climate change. We see it every day now with the storms, the tornadoes, flooded cities. No? We need more studies. There's a study done in New York which calculated, if they wanted to upgrade the urban infrastructure system, the costs of doing that in a traditional way, or the costs of doing that by including more urban agriculture, open spaces in the streets, rooftop gardens. No? We need more of those studies to show that. We need more studies like the type done in Rosario, and Laura can tell you about that, no? Where they actually made scenarios. So if 5% of total service areas is under urban agriculture, or 10% or 20%, no? What would the impacts be on stormwater runoff? And what would the savings be in terms of urban drainage? We have the methodology of that study on our website. Obesity is another big problem. We've always supported urban agriculture, and we need to continue to support it for malnutrition. But now we have to think of how can it tackle obesity, which is becoming a big problem. No? Youth employment and migration. I know also the German government and the Italian and Dutch government. No? We have this hypothesis that if we create local employment, people will not migrate from rural areas to the city or from the cities to Europe. I don't know if that's true. No? It might be. If so, what role could urban agriculture play? Because a lot of youth don't want to work in rural agriculture. No? But they want new forms of employment, using ICT, maybe new production technologies like hydroponics, interacting with consumers, so combining production with management, with customer relations, with economics. So I think if it works, urban agriculture can be a very important strategy, but we need more evidence. We need support for projects, we need more research to explore that. And the last part somebody already mentioned, soil management and urban agroecology. No? I have a colleague from Wageningen University who said, climate change is not our biggest problem, it's soil erosion, if you think of agriculture production. So if that's true, if the soil and soil management is one of our biggest resources for maintaining food production for the world, and a lot of soil nowadays is urban soil, or will become urban soil. What is the role for urban agriculture? What's the role of urban agroecology in maintaining that soil resource base? Last thing, lots of city networks are emerging. In the Netherlands, we now have the Dutch city network. It's 12 Dutch cities, 2 provinces, and 3 ministries. Ministry of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Internal Relations, and the Ministry of Sport, who came together to sign a Dutch city deal because they see cities now as actors to change the Dutch urban food system. So can something like that be done in other countries? There is a Scandinavian network, there's a UK network, there's a Spanish network being formed. No? There's an international network, the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, 140 cities signed it. There's international recognition in urban agendas, the new Habitat Urban Agenda. So what can we learn? And what can we learn here from North-South exchange? There's the city network that RUAF and Ecology, and my colleague Tori is also somewhere here. We just set up, which is open for any city around the world to talk. And one thing we're going to do is we're going to learn from the national networks, so to help other national networks. I know in Germany there's also an initiative to start a German network. How can we integrate these national networks with international networks? So have 1 or 2 partners from a national network participating in an international network and sharing back. And I also want to make a call in, let's not create more networks, which could be a tendency also of this conference, saying, okay, we want to create a network for everybody who's here, but let's first think of what networks are already there and how to strengthen them and, make them more efficient. Thanks a lot. And there's no time for questions, which wasn't my fault. But feel free to talk to me or one of the partners in the coffee break.
Thank you very much, Marielle, for your keynote. And of course, you can blame me. I am the one who's guilty that there is no chance for you to ask questions to Marielle right now. But I already asked her. She will be with us today and tomorrow. And between the coffee breaks, between the open spaces, between the workshops, I think there will be plenty of opportunities to get into contact and to ask her and to maybe get back to one or the other topic from the PowerPoint presentation. And she already pointed out there's so many colleagues somewhere here in the plenary. Just get in contact with them. Now, thanks a lot once again for the keynote. Before we go much more into the topic and before we have the chance to see some more practical examples in the open space session, there's one logistical announcement I have to make right now, which is a little bit related to what we just saw. 2 important topics related to urban farming is health and money. So the organizational announcement is that some people will get the reimbursement of their health insurance for coming to Germany. And the reimbursement will take place in the conference office just on that floor somewhere. On my back, there's the conference office where Andreas will be at the beginning, the start of the lunch break, 1:45, and at the end of the lunch break. So please, for all of those who traveled to Germany for this conference, go there in the lunch break for the reimbursement of your health insurance. So that was my last logistical announcement at the moment. We will now have the opportunity to get more insights into different projects from all around the world. There was a call for papers and more than 100 projects actually handed in their proposals and 19 of them have been chosen for the open space with the idea to in 2 sessions today and tomorrow, provide an insight and especially provide some time to really get into contact and ask questions about the different approaches from all around the world. So this actually is also based on the idea of this conference to get in contact, learn from each other, and go back home with new ideas that can be just get into practice maybe at your project in the future. So the idea of this open space actually is that today we will have 10 projects from Ethiopia, Syria, Lebanon, China, the US, Mexico, Colombia, Italy, Kenya, and Germany that will be presented at these pinboards that you can see over here already. So there are 2 pinboards in this room, and you can also see the different topics of the open space of the projects in the program and on the slide. The idea now is, if we can see the next slide with the location of these different pinboards per project, that on this floor, all around this floor, there will be these 10 projects situated, and you can just see we are somewhere here. There are 2 projects in this room, and all the other projects will be distributed on this floor. And the idea of this open space actually is that you choose yourself whatever you think is interesting, and you just go there. And we asked the colleagues from around the world to give a 10-minute presentation, and they should really stick to the 10 minutes in order to give you the chance to ask questions and to really get some bits and pieces from the project by asking them, or get in discussion and exchange ideas or experiences. So the idea is 10 minutes input at each and every of these corners and each and every of these projects, and around 10 minutes for discussion and questions. And then, the latest, you should try to find a new project you are interested in, and then the same will happen again. So there will be 2 rounds, 2 times the same input, and 2 times, most probably not the same discussions taking place at these corners. And it's up to you to choose which of the projects you want to see. It's an open space. It's up to you. If you just figure out after 1 minute, oh, I already know everything about this project, don't worry, just go to the next project. So this is the idea of open space, that you yourself can feel responsible to choose whatever you are interested in. So wander around from one corner to another, get in contact, leave your business cards and email addresses so that you can get in contact if you like. And do not forget to drink coffee and tea on the way. Just to mention that there will be coffee and tea all the time, so there is no need for you to right now queue up at the coffee desk, otherwise it will just delay the program. So maybe just the early birds go for the coffee right now, and the others just go there in between during the open space for their cup of coffee. And then at 11:30 I ask you to be back for the panel discussion right here in this room. So with this, I let you choose the projects you want to see. Good luck and a lot of interesting insights.